Power is not given to you. You have to take it. Beyonce. You are listening to the Real Estate Investor Show, episode number 15.
Welcome, ladies, to the Real Estate Investor Show, providing inspiration, strategies, and insight to empower women investors to live balanced and financially free lives. Now, here are your co-hosts, Liz and Andressa.
Moneeka Sawyer is often described as one of the most blissful people you will ever meet. She has been investing in real estate for over 20 years. She has turned $10,000 into over $2 million, working only 5 to 10 hours per month with very little stress. She is the best-selling author of the award-winning book, Choose Bliss, The Power and Practice of Joy and Contentment. On today's episode, we cover everything from remaining blissful in spite of daily challenges, to managing high-end rentals, to setting up processes and systems in your business. Welcome back, everyone. This is Liz.
Hey, this is Andressa.
We're excited for everyone being back here on the Real Estate Investor Show, and really excited about our episode this week, as we are every week. But we have some fabulous women we're interviewing on the show. And before we jump in, I'll ask you, Andressa, how's it going? What's new and exciting?
Everything is good. I just came back from a 3-day conference, real estate conference. And you go to those conferences and you meet amazing people, great speakers, and you kind of get out inspired and also overwhelmed. And one thing that I did this time that I didn't do the other 100 times is that I put down what are my top 5 things that I learned. So I'm looking at the 5 things that will impact my business the most. And after I complete them, then I go through the other 500 items. But that's something that I did this time differently from the other times. So let's see how it goes.
That's awesome. And I would say too, for the women listening to this show, think about one thing you hear. Our phenomenal guests we're about to introduce to you, one thing you hear that you can use and that you're going to do in the next week. Because so much of this stuff is just information. But if you don't do something with it, it's nice, but it's not going to make an impact in your life. So that's awesome. 5 is ambitious, Andressa, but I know you, and you're one ambitious lady. So I think I walked away from the conference thinking, all right, what's 3 things? I love you, Andressa, for that ambition. So.
Well,
awesome.
we'll see. I'll get back to you guys on that.
Okay. Well, and I want to introduce our wonderful guest here, Moneeka Sawyer. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. We're super excited to have you on here. We have tons of questions for you. And before we jump in and as we jump in, we love to hear how our guests, the women that we interview, got started in this real estate investing business. So I know you've been investing for 20 years, and you've seen a lot, I'm sure, in those 20 years. So, what for you compelled you to get going, to get started in investing, and what propelled you to jump in?
Yeah. So actually, my experience with real estate started when I was 3.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, my son is it's too late already.
Yeah. So my parents came to this country newlyweds in 1967 with only $200 in their pocket.
Wow.
And they had heard, even in India, that the golden ticket to wealth in the United States was to buy real estate. So as fast as they could, they got their first primary residence, right? And then I was born, and they had this brand new little baby, and just with their hearts filled with love and joy and excitement for this child, they decided they were going to start investing in real estate so they could give her the best life possible. So they stayed really focused on their goals, and then 15 years later, they were able to pay for my college education.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
And then isn't that amazing? And so then they did the same for my sisters. They paid for our weddings. Now they're retired with a big home. So us girls have our own rooms when we come home. And the cool thing is, and this is what I am most grateful for, is that they have been able to retire with the lifestyle that they most desire after all of those years of hard work. So when I got out of college, I didn't get to see the end of this story like I'm kind of seeing it now, right? But I had seen what they had done. I had seen how it had benefited my life. And so that's what inspired me as I wanted to move forward and have those same things, be able to do the same, achieve the same things in my life that my parents had achieved, right? And I was so much luckier, right? I didn't just have $200 in my pocket, right? I had a lot more. The thing is that my parents had also suffered a lot of stress, as many investors do, right? I had seen my dad stressed out about money. I heard the horror stories about tenants and the toilets and the house, the maintenance and all of those things. So one of the things that I was really afraid of was having that stress in my life. As you know, I wrote the book, Choose Bliss. Like, I'm all about being happy. And so it was really important to me that as I built this business, that it was not stressful for me. When I was looking at buying my very first property, I remember being really scared because I didn't know how I was going to do this. I was afraid of the stress. And I had a conversation with my dad. He sat me down across the kitchen table and he said to me, Moneeka, everybody has fear and everybody has money issues. Do you want poor people money issues, or are you going to conquer your fear and have rich people money issues?
Wow.
Right? And that just completely changed my life. And so, yes, of course, I wanted rich people money issues, right? So I conquered my fear, took that first step, and that's how my journey began. The thing is that I have streamlined my business in such a way that I only work about 5 to 10 hours a month, and I have very, very little stress. When challenges come up, I've got the tools so that I can approach a challenge more like a puzzle rather than freaking out and stressing out like a lot of investors do. And that's now what I teach in my mastermind, my coursework, and that's what I practice in my life.
That's awesome. I think that I really wish all of you that are listening right now, can you feel her energy? Can you, through her smile, so that's like, it's contagious. So I don't know how would that be if I'm in the same room as you. How would that energy like bounce around? So that's, you're touching on the difference between how you deal with investment differently from your parents. And when we think about investing in real estate, contractors, flood basements, cracks on the walls, mold, and all of that, the word bliss doesn't come attached to that. So when you say bliss, what do you really mean? How can we really add that word to our daily basis?
Thank you so much for asking that question, because you're right. So many people hear this word and they're like, what? Or they have all these weird impressions of what it means, right? So we're not talking about sitting in a yoga position and saying Om our entire life.
Okay.
So bliss to me is a really deep sense of joy and contentment and the confidence that emotionally we can handle anything that comes our way. So what I talk about is emotional resilience and emotional mastery. Warren Buffett once said, if you cannot control your emotions, you cannot control your money. But it's also true in life. We have a right to our emotions. They're a gift given to us, one of the many from God, right? And they are a source of information. However, if we live in those emotions, we're not able to make good decisions in a lot of cases. So our emotions will direct us, but we don't want to make our decisions from that place. So when I'm talking about bliss, I'm talking about coming to this place where we feel in control of our emotions and our lives, and we can make good decisions. And bliss really is about remaining in that place of sort of like joy and contentment that comes with that resilience and that control. So I'm not saying, Lady Lily, I'm not saying emotions are bad. I'm saying they're awesome and we have a right to them. We also have a right to staying in this place, which I call the blissful equilibrium, which is our home base. So we can go to depressed, which we do. We can go to ecstasy, which we do. But our home base is joy and contentment. And we get to live our lives from that place. And we get back there as fast as we can, no matter where else we go.
So I'm going to give you a scenario because in my head, I'm thinking about a situation, which a lot of investors deal with is dealing with contractors. And I understand you've done flips and, you manage a lot of your construction. So you know this, right? So when I think of like managing construction and bliss, like in my little head, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just see them as like, so I'm curious, like, so specifically, I get what you're saying. And I love what you're saying in terms of emotional mastery and contentment and joy. So in terms of a specific situation, right? Someone's dealing with a contractor and they hired someone to, especially from a flip perspective, a couple of months are going by, they're having to let go of that contractor, right? The situation doesn't even matter, right? We can spend the next hour talking about that situation. Doesn't matter. But the real important thing for someone who's experienced or even new, but even in my shoes, we have to let go of a contractor or let go of a relationship, right? Which happens in this business. Mm-hmm. What tools specifically, like what specifically can someone do or woman do in that situation? How do they stay with joy and contentment? How do they remain in that emotional mastery as they're dealing with loss of potentially time, money, the stress of the project not doing what it needs to do? So you know what I mean? So like, I'm just curious. I'm sure you got a ton of tools. Yeah. I'm sure you got, so many. So I'm curious, like, what could, our listeners take from that, like that kind of situation, and what tool can they use?
Yeah. So I have a tool that I like to give because it's so fast and easy. And actually you can use it anywhere. You can use it in a traffic jam. You can use it with your spouse, and you can use it when you're dealing with a situation in real estate. And this technique is stop, drop, and breathe. And basically what happens is when we're in a situation like we're having to get rid of a contractor and there's all this stuff going on in our head, right? We're like, oh my God, if I do this, I'm going to lose all this time. Like you said, time, money, this relationship, I've spent all this time, right? I'm going to lose money. What if this project doesn't work? What if the next guy doesn't work, right? There's all this stuff going on in our head. So what you need to do when you find yourself in that situation is stop the thoughts. Do an interrupt. So for me, I'll just say, Moneeka. And I literally will like wave my hand, Moneeka. And then I drop into my body. And you'll notice there's all this tension in your body, right? So you drop in your body and release the tension. Release the stress in your shoulders. Then breathe into your heart. Do it a couple of times. And you'll notice you feel more relaxed. The crazy, frantic thoughts will have stopped. You'll feel more grounded. And you can make decisions and have better conversations from this place than from that freak out place.
So maybe during the conversation, when you are in already fight mode, let's take a break here. Give me 5 minutes until I get to that step. I think a very important point is just to be present when that is happening, not after. So the reducing the gap between, I should have breathed, right? I didn't drop it, right? So until we get to that point and we think and say, oh, hold on, this is happening now. Give me 5 minutes. Let me get back to you on this instead of escalating it. Is that the point of the exercise?
That's exactly right, is you want to make sure that you catch it. Now, this is actually hard. That catching it piece is hard because we're all tied up in what's going on right now. But if you can catch it, you're going to end up in a much better place all the way around. If you don't beat yourself up. This takes practice, right? But I'll actually do things. And I think as women in real estate, we have a lot of like things that we can do that a man would never do. So for instance, if I'm in it with my contractor and I'm irritated, and we're having a conversation and they can see my face is tightening and their face is tightening and the guy gets his defenses up, right? You guys, you know this look, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
I will literally look at him and say, okay, this is not going very well. Hold on. And I'll spin around. I do a little Wonder Woman spin. And
Curious.
Like, yeah.
I love that.
And the guys are like, what the hell? You know? But literally they smile, I smile, and I'll say, okay, deep breath, let's start again. And it just changes everything. Even if I'm saying, you know what, we can't work together anymore, the whole conversation has a different feel to it, right? So there are different ways to do that.
Yeah, it's that interrupting the pattern. I think it was maybe,
right.
You know, you hear that from different places, and that's so true. I love that you didn't just visualize yourself spinning, but you literally spin around. I love that. Like,
right. If you guys see me, if you guys see me spinning around, you know what it is. Something's not going well there.
But it's just funny, the looks on people's faces. They're like, what are you doing?
I'm going to try it. I'm going to freaking try it. I'm going to spin around.
But it's the changing of the state. I mean, how powerful is that to really change your state? But I love what you're saying. It's you're changing the person that you're with state as well. So you can begin again. And it doesn't mean that you're going to skip down the road together, because it might be the end of that relationship. But at least you're coming at a more blissful way, in a blissful kind of way of being. So that's a great suggestion.
It's kind of like snapping out of a situation, right? Mm-hmm. And then his thought came from what's going on here on this project too. Why is she spinning around? Like,
that's right.
So you kind of like broke the thought. That's
exactly. So and you know, the thing is that a lot of men are used to the snapping out of it. Like you'll see when they're trying to do a pattern interrupt, they'll snap, or they'll whatever, they stand back, right? When you do something completely unexpected, that's a real pattern interrupt. It's not something that your physiology is used to. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So when you do something unexpected, they're like, you know, and it's awesome because it changes everything.
It's so funny. It came an example in my hand. So Brazilians are very good at Jujitsu, right? And we have one of our champions. He studied the movements and patterns of animals and added those movements to Jujitsu. So when he went inside the ring, right, he started making those movements, and you saw the look on the people's face, and were like, what the hell is he doing? So they couldn't figure it out how to deal with that. And he started winning right and left. Because he kind of people didn't know what he was doing and what strategies he was going to use. He was great at Jiu-Jitsu, but he had this edge on him. So it's kind of like snapping out of a situation. He used like monkey and like spider movements. And I was like, this is nuts. But I guess it works.
Yeah, it does. It does. Sometimes being nuts is really cool.
I have to put that in our show notes. I love that. I love this specific tool because it's real. And you know, I think it's really like you said, it's practice, right? And it's really practicing, because we're going to get plenty of those situations.
Right.
So, you know, just to circle back on something else you said about working 5 to 10 hours a week. I'd love to explore. A month. Excuse me. Wow. A month. Wow.
Liz, we got to work on this.
Yeah, we got to work on that. That's our separate conversation. But okay, so 5 to 10 hours a month. So walk me through a little bit, or tell us a little more about that. So in terms of what are you currently, managing your own rental portfolio? Are you actively flipping property? Just share with us a little bit about what that looks like for you. And then I'd love to explore a little bit with you around how you make that work and how you make that happen. So just in terms of, what are you up to currently with your real estate investing kind of business?
Good. So really, really good question. And so let me be really clear on this. 5 to 10 hours a month is an average. So when I'm in the process of acquiring a new property or filling a new property, often I'm spending more hours. Okay. The rest of the year, I spend nothing. So let me break that down and kind of how that looks for me. So I buy properties, fix them up, and put in renters. I'm in an area where we can't cash flow very well with the kinds of properties that I want to buy. I buy A-grade properties. I have executive homes.
Where you're located, Moneeka?
I'm in the Silicon Valley.
Okay.
Okay, so I have executives in my homes from Apple, Facebook, Google, all of these guys, right? They come in from other areas of a short-term rental. A lot of times short-term turns into 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's not uncommon, right? But whatever, they want to go home, so they rent. A lot of people are like, if they make that much money, why are they renting? And this is the thing, is we have somebody that just moved back to South Carolina. I have people coming in from Sony from Japan. So, things like that. So the thing that I normally will tell people is, you're coming into this home, but it is your home. And you do not want me breathing down your neck. So I want to give you and the respect so that you can create the lifestyle that you want in this home. But what that means is that then you have to take care of it as if it's your own home. And so the first few times there are problems, give me a call. We'll figure it out. I'll show you how things work and how I like things done so that the house is maintained to the standard that would be expected for an executive home. And then after we build trust with each other, it usually takes 3 to 5 times. You get to do whatever you want to do here. Just let me know what's going on. So I get the receipt and they take it out of their rent, usually. In the end, they just take care of the property. And the times that I get a phone call is, hey, Moneeka, can I take you out to dinner? We're so grateful for what
there we
you're doing
go.
for us. Right?
She goes out with the tenants. Liz, guess what?
And
That's awesome.
Yeah. And they're not my best friends. There is a line, right? You have to know because if you have to evict somebody, they need to not be your favorite person in the whole world, right? So there's definitely a line here, but it's just to illustrate the point that I'm not getting phone calls about toilets and lights and problems. I'm phone calls about thank you so much. So that's how I manage my properties. That's why I spend so little time with my properties once I've got somebody in there. But I do vet people, and we have that conversation before they get into the house. Because if they're like, no, I'm renting because I don't want to be responsible, well, they're not going to be a tenant that's going to work with me. Our working style is not going to work out. Right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it also sounds like you focus on those being very clear, your clear expectations with your tenants. And, you have this it's executive home. So that's what this means. And you're able to convey that and everyone's clear. And I think that's
right. Now, all my homes are not executive homes. So for those of you that do not do those kinds of properties, I do have mid-tier homes also, like B grade. But I still have the same conversation. And those tenants take care of the houses too. And those tenants usually stay, I think my shortest one is 5 years. I've got someone that's going on 10 years now, right? So it's amazing. It's an amazing strategy, just giving people autonomy, treating them with a kind of respect that they're not used to. It doesn't always work out. And if it doesn't, you have to get rid of people. It's fine. But there's a way that I run my business, and people have to plug themselves in or not, right? So that's that part of the business. I do have a team. So when I buy a house, I usually buy something distressed so I get it at a little better price. I fix it up. I have a team that goes in. I usually only spend about $15,000 on a fix up, and then I put people into it.
And these are single families or multi-families?
These are all single families right now.
Got it.
So that's that piece of the business. Flipping happens by accident. So if I buy a property and I get a really good deal on it, I fix it up and I realize I can make $50,000 on it, then I'll sell it. So that kind of happens by accident. Same with wholesaling. Those sorts of things. When you're in the business and you're out there, you see these things come up. And if you know about the opportunities, you take the opportunity. Right? But that's not my focus. My current focus now is construction. And so what I'm doing is I'll buy a property that has a rental property on it, a house on it. I rent it out. And then in the meantime, I organize the permits and get everything through the city. And then I start the construction piece of that. So that's actually where I am right now. It takes very little time because I'm sort of still in the process of getting things set up. As we start to build, I spend more time. However, I will not say that in the past that has been my big business. I have been about 5 to 10 hours a month. I think as I move into construction, that's going to have to change, right? But now after 20 years, I'm ready for that. I've gotten bored with the system. It's time for me to do something more fun and exciting that takes more of my time, right? But it's a conscious decision, and it's not what has been required to build a multi-million-dollar business. It's just that now that's what I want to do. It's fun.
Sure. Right? Absolutely. For the ladies that are, and the gentlemen too, because we do have gentlemen listening to us, I'd like you to break it down a little bit more about how the executive properties look like. What's your average price point? What's the average rent that you get from those?
Yeah. These numbers are a little bit crazy in most of the country. So I know that this isn't normal, but I'm just going to say this is how things work in the Silicon Valley. Okay. So,
all right.
So my cheapest house, which is kind of a lower mid-tier, is worth $500,000. I bought it for $180,000.
How much did you buy it for?
$180,000. My highest house is worth 1.7, and I bought it for $700,000.
And where are you finding these most of the time?
These are in the San Jose area, so I stay South Bay. I'm not going up the peninsula. For anybody who knows the Bay Area, the further up towards San Francisco you get, the more expensive it gets. So I'm staying more South Bay. There's a ton of tech down here anyways, and property values are going up very quickly.
And you're finding them online, or there's a different strategy that you use?
No, you know what? I'm all about ease. I do MLM. So, I know that sounds crazy, but yes, I pay retail.
Look at her. If the number, here's the thing. If the number works and it's aligned to your goals, who cares where you get that from?
Right. And you know, the thing is this, that I started with $10,000. I bought a primary residence, put 5% down, and I built the entire thing starting with that. So, you know, I'm not an uber aggressive person. I'm not flashy, sexy around real estate, but my system works and it's consistent and it can work for a lot of people, and it can work even if you know what you're doing, you can make it through, 2008, for instance. I bought a home, the house that I live in, I bought a home in 2008 at the very top of the market. I spent $1 million on the home that I was to live in. And literally within 3 months, lost $300,000 on that house. And there are a lot of people that would lose their mind around that, right? That's a lot of dollars, right?
Yeah.
However, I was living in it. When I needed to move, rents were high enough to cover the mortgage. I just held it. Now it's worth 1.4. Right? So I haven't done as awesome as I might have done if it hadn't dropped like that. But if you have a strategy and you have several plans, you've got an exit plan that is changeable. So you can pivot, right? You can make a different decision. You're not so strung out financially that you have to do something. So if you've got your plan B, you can ride the wave and recover. That's not always true, but for the most part, you can protect yourself. And so that's kind of how I've built my business. The rents you mentioned, rents go between $2,200 and $5,000, depending on which house it is.
Got it.
Moneeka, you're also mentioning something throughout our interview that I think is really important to speak of, and then I'd love to even get a little more, dive a little more into it, is about, you mentioned earlier about they're going to plug into my system. You're talking about strategy, systems. You're very mindful of that, and not just mindful, but I'm sure the stuff is written down. I'm curious for the women listening to this, especially ones, I sometimes think it's harder when you're doing this for a while, right? And you have this way of being around it. And if you don't necessarily have that approach, you may not have this stuff written down. And then it's like every project's different because you don't have the stuff written down. Justin and I just got back from this conference, and one of the speakers kept talking about an SOP. I thought he was saying like an SOB, but it's not what he was saying. That's where my head's at, because I'm not the most, I have to work on my processes and systems. And he kept talking about a standard operating procedure. I'm like, wow, we got to do more of that in our business. So for you, I bet this stuff is written down. Like, how did you, what was your process? What did that look like? And what can our listeners take from this call, whether they're doing it or not doing it, they're active or not active, or they're looking to get involved, or they have an existing business? What are some steps they can take to really get clear? Because not only are you clear, but I'm sure you have the stuff written down, and you are laser focused. They plug in, they plug out, they're in, they work with me, they work, or they're aligned, they're not aligned. I mean, you're not like, well, if it works for them. That's not what you said.
No.
So I'm curious, like, what for you? What did you do? I mean, how did you get yourself set up so laser focused?
Yeah. What I'm about to say is going to work for bringing bliss into your life too. We discover systems for ourselves that are aligned with who we are as people and our values and our goals. A system that works for me may not work for you. There are people that think that I am very hard with my tenants, and yet my tenants absolutely love me because I think I'm really kind with them. They don't have to read my mind. They know exactly what I expect. And we have great relationships. So the way that I created my systems is every single time that I would do something, I would take notes through the process. And there were times when something went really bad, and I could go back and say, okay, well, this is where I made an exception. This is what I did not look at. Or if something goes really right, this is what I did. So I'd start to take notes. And then I just simply created the system by organizing my notes. And then as the years went by, I would refine those notes. And there were consistent exceptions that I would make that would cause consistent problems, right? And so then I would just not make that exception. I'm only buying a house a year or a house every couple of years. I'm not doing this full time, so I can't keep it all in my head. But what I can do is kind of keep a journal about the process. And then at the end, make my notes a little bit more clear. As I move into the next time, I'm not having to reinvent the wheel. I can look at my notes. It's like one page, look at the summary of my notes, and do I want to follow that again? But it's there for me. Now I'm not like freaked out about reinventing the wheel every single time. And each time I review the notes, and now it's just a system. I still make stupid exceptions that bite me in the butt, right? But for the most part, it's working beautifully. Everything works. And you know what? Challenges just are going to come up. That's the way business is. Things are going to be different. Maybe I want a house that looks like this in this particular area, and I've never done a house like that before. I'm going to have to change, right? But if you've got a basic system, it's so much easier to pivot when you've got a foundation than to constantly be recreating. You can't spend 5 to 10 hours a month if you're constantly recreating. That creation process is very stressful and takes a lot of time.
I completely agree. For the properties that you buy on the MLS, I bet you have good realtors around you. How important is for you that the realtors also invest in real estate? Do you use that as a deal breaker if they don't, or that's one of your exceptions?
Yeah. So I always recommend that you have a realtor that invests in real estate. Because if they're investing, they understand the language, they understand what you're feeling, they understand what you're looking for, they understand why you're being picky in a certain way. So for all of my clients, that's what I recommend. I do not have a realtor that invests in real estate. So I actually met my realtor. I was a mortgage broker. And he and I were in a class together about getting referrals. And so that's how we connected. The realtor that I was working with at the time also did not, she invested, but she had her own specific strategy and was constantly trying to impose her strategy on me. And I knew it wasn't going to work for me. So I was ready to leave. And I figured that I could what do you say, like train this new realtor to do what I needed him to do.
Look at you. You are thinking years ahead.
Now, he didn't have a huge network, but he was willing to work really hard for me because we were building this business together. And I had let him in on a secret from me. As a mortgage broker, all of my clients' referrals, I was making $250,000 a year on 15 clients. Why? I didn't have to keep getting new clients. I was working with investors because they kept buying. They kept refinancing. They kept my business going without too much energy, right? I'm all about, let's relax. Let's keep this not stressful, right? So now I had told him that. He was like on board, and I was going to train him on kind of what an investor needed, right? So he's getting a benefit from me. I'm getting a benefit from him. I've been working with him for 15 years now. And what's really true is that, abroad, my husband and I have traveled to 55 countries together just because it's fun. So that's what this business is allowed. But when I'm abroad, if he finds something, if we're actively looking and he finds something, I totally trust his judgment. We've written offers while I was abroad because we have that relationship, right? And when he has another investor client that comes to him, he's able to bend and flow with their needs rather than imposing. Now, certainly they have knowledge and wisdom that we don't have because they're in the business, right? And they'll tell me, I think this is a bad idea because of this, right? But he understands my strategy and he's willing to work with me. And when he's giving me advice, it's related to that strategy. And he does that with his other clients. He himself has gotten burned in investing. So he's stepping back now and reevaluating and putting together his own strategy, which as investors we need to do, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So, but right now, yes, he's not investing. He's stepped back for a little while. So that's kind of how I found my realtor and what happened. But yes, if you want to get out there and you want things to start happening fast for you, get a realtor who understands investing, and best is if he's investing himself. So one of the things that I tell people is ask them, do you invest? Hopefully the answer is yes, but either way, ask them how many investors do you work with and how many rental property or investment property deals have you done in the last year? That's all relevant information, and that's going to make a difference in your business.
I love that. One of the reasons we started this podcast was all about what women deal with in terms of balancing their life, right? So we're not just investors, we're not just moms, we're just not just obviously women, but women have this drive to do a lot, to serve a lot of masters, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So I have to ask you, since you are the blissful coach, that's how I look at you right now. You're my blissful coach. You didn't know that, but now you are. What would you say to the woman listening to this that is balancing so many things? And it just continues, right? So one to-do comes off, one to-do comes on. That's just life, right? We're always going to be expanding. We're always going to be, wanting to be more and do more. I think that's just the way humans are. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's wonderful. But I should say, and we want to do it probably in a blissful way, right? Creates more peace. So how do women do that? Right? I mean, I'm sure the answers are endless and they probably need to get your book, which we're going to give you in a minute. You're going to share all about how wonderful, where people can find that. Because I think we all need to read that. But what's a tip for that woman listening to this that just sees her life full?
Yeah.
How do they bring bliss into their daily life?
Yeah. So yes, there's a lot of techniques in the book. So thank you for that. And definitely I would say my best strategies are in that book. There are 14 of them to help. But what I will say is this, you have to actually make bliss a priority. So create some bliss practices that will help to stabilize you emotionally. The other thing is accept that you can't do it all and that in truth, That's awesome. Because you know what? If you know what your strengths are and you play to your strengths, it takes so much stress out of your life. It gives you so much more time and energy, and you're able to play more. And then you delegate those things that are not your strengths. So some of it is delegation, some of it is having some bliss practices, and the other thing is accepting that even though you're a superwoman, even superwoman cannot do everything. And just really getting that and finding the things that are going to improve your life in every area of your life and doing those things. The book, The One Thing, you guys, have you read this?
Excellent book. Yeah.
Yeah. So Andressa was talking about she was going to pick 5 things, right?
Yes.
Which is awesome, right? As women, we're, as overachievers, this is what we do, right?
There we go.
Right? But let's look at that, because I know this is how Andressa is working, just based on what she accomplishes. You look at the one thing that's going to make the biggest difference in your life, and you choose a strategy to succeed in that one thing. Right? Yeah, and you can do that in your relationships. You can do that in your work. You can do that in your investing. You can do that with your children. You don't have to do everything.
Absolutely. And another thing that I will add to it, because sometimes, we listen to different advices and we already start thinking, oh, but this is not going to work for me because I have 5 children. I work at the hospital. I'm starting my business. I don't have knowledge. I'm too young. I'm too old, or whatever that is. And we don't try. So I think that all advice that we can give here, and you have given so many, I need to go back and listen again and apply them. I think that I will encourage all of you ladies that are listening here to give a try, even though if your brain is giving you a lot of words, and just ignore that and let's give a try. You never know what can happen.
Yeah. And I love the idea of, I love what you said, everything you just said. I wrote down for myself, making it a priority, right? So what we make priorities, we focus our energy on expands, right? And if we don't make it a priority, it's just a nice thought, right? It's a nice thing that she has because she can, or people, then that's not accurate. Everyone can. So I love that, making it a priority. Moneeka, share with our listeners too about where they can learn more about you and learn more about all the amazing things you're up to.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So first of all, the book that I wrote is called Choose Bliss. This is 14 strategies that I put together as an executive coach over 11 years. These are the ones that consistently work to help people to be blissful, joyful, and keep joy and bliss a priority in life. So you can get that book on Amazon. It's called Choose Bliss, The Power and Practice of Joy and Contentment. So that's my book. The next thing is I also have a podcast that Andressa was on. And it's called Real Estate Investing for Women, and it's on iTunes with Moneeka Sawyer. And I also have a free gift for your guests. Can I share that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I have a strategy that I used. I started with $10,000 and I'm worth well over $5 million now. How did I get there? And people ask me this all the time. So I put together a free report that people can download so they can watch my journey and see which pieces of that they can use in their own journey to create their own wealth. So they can get that at blissfulinvestor.com. That's blissfulinvestor.com.
Beautiful. And all that information, guys, you guys can check it out on our show notes. You will see all the links there so you guys can get the free gift. Awesome. So I'm going to get started with our fabulous 3. And my first question is, what's the most transformational book you have ever read?
Think and Grow Rich.
Awesome.
That's where it all began.
Yeah, right. Exactly. When I think about what was one of my first ones, those were those. What got your attention with the book?
I like that he had interviewed a lot of really successful people, and I think that it's important that we model around success. So I'm going to be more likely to be successful if I can model successful people.
Absolutely. Don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
It's already there. Awesome. Great. What's the most powerful routine you do to create a financially free and balanced life?
I have a morning routine. And that's actually in my book also. Your morning routine sets you up for success every single day. And it allows you to make the choice to be successful every single day.
Awesome. Can you share yours? What do you do?
Sure. It's kind of detailed, but so even before, when my alarm goes off, I push snooze. And what I'm doing when I'm snoozing is I'm doing gratitudes. And the gratitudes, I have a whole course on how to do gratitudes. You can actually do them the wrong way, but I do my gratitudes. And then the snooze alarm goes off. I take a couple of deep breaths and I get moving on my day. So I pet the dog, take him out to pee.
There you go.
And then I get in the shower and, I kind of have all this mind stuff that I do. Like while I'm in the shower, I'm really, really present. So this is sort of a moving meditation to ground me. So I feel the water on my body. I feel each drop. So I really do sort of this moving meditation in the morning. So I keep things very, very, very present. Then my husband and I go down and get some coffee. And then at 10 o'clock, I'm back at my desk. And I usually start not with email, not with Facebook. I usually start by looking at some positive affirmations or some things that are going to inspire me. I try to look at 3 of those. So often what I'll do is I'll even just go into Google Images and look for quotes, inspirational quotes. And then I read a few of them. And then I move into Facebook, my email, that's where I start. And then I move into my day.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
The third and last question is, which woman, famous or not, has inspired you the most?
My mom. My mom is a doctor, an MD, and became an MD in the 40s in India, when it was not normal for women to be educated.
Wow.
She used to take a bullock cart to school for 4 hours so that she could be educated. So she is such an inspiration to me, like what she's overcome to become the powerful woman that she is. And every single time I feel like falling down or I can't do it, I think about her and all the lessons she's taught me.
Wow.
Very
That's
inspiring.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Moneeka, thank you so much for being on our show. You had so many words of wisdom, and I got to go get your book. So I hope all of our listeners will too. But I'm like, I need this book. So I just thank you so much for being who you are. Thank you for all your just great suggestions and just spreading such a great message that you can have what you want and have it all and do it in a blissful way. I think that's what we're all striving for. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on the show. This was really fun.
Awesome. It was great. Thank you so much, Moneeka.
Okay. See you later.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye
Ciao.
now.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to receive updates on our next interviews, go to our website, therealestateinvestor.com. There, you can subscribe to our show, become part of our investor community, and get updates on upcoming episodes.
If you like our show, please share it with other women who would benefit. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we encourage you to take one action as a result of today's show and put it into motion so you can live both a financially free and balanced life. Thanks for spending time with us.
Ciao.